20th October is the anniversary of a very special and unique event, one that the Sathya Sai International Organization celebrates in recognition of its significance and the impact that its consequences have had on millions of people. On this day in 1940, a momentous and historic event occurred in a small village of India. On that day, a 14-year-old village boy, Sathya Narayana Raju, threw away his school books, declared to his family that he no longer belonged to them, that he was no longer their Sathya, he was Sai, the reincarnation of an illustrious saint. That illusion, Maya, had left and his followers were calling him. He had his work to do, and he could no longer stay with them. Many at the time were already attracted to the young Sai, whose personality, amazing powers, wisdom, and spiritual splendor were captivating. Following the declaration, for 3 days, with hundreds gathering around him, he sat upon a rock in a neighboring garden, giving advice and leading the crowd in spiritual songs. One of the songs of his own composition was particularly important, as it outlined his protective role as a spiritual guide, leading those who accepted him to fulfillment of life's eternal goal, self-realization. Its principal words in Sanskrit are Manasa bhajre guru charanam, dustara bhavasa garataranam, and meaning in English, O mind, take refuge at the feet of the Guru. He will guide you across the ocean called life.
Manasa bhajre guru charanam, dustara bhavasa garataranam. Manasa bhajre guru charanam, dustara bhavasa garataranam. Bhajare Guru Charanam, dustara bhavasa garataranam. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Shivaya Namah Om.
doubtful if any who witnessed and were caught up in the event and the days following could possibly have imagined the importance of his announcements, nor the work that Sai would accomplish. He was on a mission. His work was to rekindle faith in and love for God, help the individual to rediscover their true divine nature, and re-establish right ways of living based on the universal values of truth, peace, righteousness, non-violence, and especially love. He set his task to transform society, and especially the individual, and instill the necessity of selfless service as a way towards spiritual growth, realizing the oneness of humanity and the easing of suffering. His teachings, in many ways, could be summed up in his popular saying, which he exemplified in action: love all, serve all. From this time onwards, Sai was increasingly known to all as Sathya Sai Baba, or more generally, Sai Baba. Fulfilling his role as a spiritual guide and teacher, he continually gave personal direction and advice to thousands of individuals, addressed mass gatherings with words of immortal wisdom, and inspired and led the transformation of many, many thousands. His mission grew and grew, both in numbers attracted to him and the many institutions and activities he established. Ever-increasing numbers from all walks of life, including eminent scientists, academics, dignitaries, and heads of state, came to seek his wisdom and guidance. Many wholeheartedly attached themselves to him and embraced his teachings, practicing them with confidence. These numbers included many thousands drawn to him from all around the world. His influence continues unabated since the passing of his physical body in 2011. Ashram established around him continually grew in size to accommodate the enormous crowds who came to see him. Irrespective of background, spiritual seekers joined in the numerous religious festivals drawn from many different faiths, which were observed there. Alongside of this, service was a hallmark of his activities, from regular feeding of the poor, providing free medical services via mobile health care units, disaster relief, and many other activities, as well as large-scale service projects. These included establishing and maintaining educational institutions from primary to university level, and building and staffing hospitals, including 2 state-of-the-art super specialty hospitals, which provided free healthcare to many who could not afford it otherwise. A number of major water projects provided safe drinking water to millions of villagers and townspeople who had to rely on inadequate, dangerous, and unpredictable supplies prior to his intervention. These are but a few of many service activities undertaken by Sai, which continue to support those in need. His teachings and example inspired his followers around the world to seek out opportunities to alleviate the suffering of those in need, to facilitate the distribution of his message, and to provide opportunities for followers to join together to practice service in group. A worldwide organization was established 50 years ago, the Sathya Sai International Organization. That organization has branches in 120 countries throughout the world, and its members have many different service projects that they are engaged in providing relief to those in distress and suffering. Whilst the outer expression of Sai's influence is most easily witnessed, for example, within the activities of Sai groups, the educational and healthcare institutions, the service activities that followers engage in, it is the quiet transformation of the individual that is the most profound and noteworthy aspect of his teachings and guidance. Individuals who, still having all the frailties of the human character, strive to become more tolerant, loving individuals who recognize their faulty behavior and seek to overcome it. People who have a confidence that there is purpose in life and strive to fulfill it, to recognize God in all and within themselves.
Wouldn't it be nice doing only good to practice what we preach each and every day?
Sathya Prema Shanti and Ahimsa, with our Lord's divine love to help us on our way.
Hindu, Buddhist, Sikh and Jain, Christian, Jew or Muslim, you'll get there just the same.
Wouldn't it be nice doing what is right, to love our fellow men and help in any way?
Yellow, black or white, we're all equal in His sight, with our Lord's divine love to help us on our way. Prophets and sages from beginning of time have come down to teach us that we are all entwined. How blessed is human race to be showered with His grace, because our divine Lord is here on earth today.
If you were to ask the different seekers what attracted them to Sai, most would say it was the wisdom, the beauty and the rightness of his teachings, and especially the magnetism of his love, which had a power way beyond normal human experience. Talking and sharing about their connection to Sai Baba and his teachings and the influence they have had in their lives are two members of the SSIO Australia, Jenny Monson and Margaret Van Hennekler.
Sairam everyone, and Sairam Marg. And we'd like to offer this conversation to the divinity resident in everyone here with us today. So Mark, this is an opportunity for us to share how we came to connect with Sathya Sai Baba and what impact that he and his teachings have had on our lives. So when I think about it, you and I have known each other for over 20 years, and we had rather similar beginnings in the organisation in Australia, in that we both lived in a small rural community, and we heard about him through different ways, but we were not in touch with big groups or Sathya Sai centres. So would you like to just say how it is you heard about Sai?
Yes, it's very good to have that opportunity to even talk about these things, because we tuck them away and we love to talk about it. It was 92, so for you, what year was it?
I was 86.
86, so it was 92. A friend of ours came across a lady who had a photo in her lounge and asked to borrow some books. So she lent them to me. She said, "Hey, there's something you've got to know." And so we'd known her about quite a number of years, maybe 20 years already. She was the only social worker in the town, and so she had some.
So this is Bundaberg you're talking about,
So
Mark,
Bundaberg, yeah.
Yeah.
So we had to take notice of these books, and I was struck by a couple of them. That was the Sandwise book. And Man of Miracles. I couldn't stop thinking how positive they were, how happy they made me feel at a time in my life when I guess I needed that. So from then I went on and started exploring, had anybody else in Queensland ever heard of this entity, this person, and found a place where there was vibhuti on a photo and visited that house, and then from then that lady was going to India for to visit the ashram, and I tagged along as well, and my husband. So That was
But you
within
dragged
6
him
months.
along, did
Yeah,
you?
within 6 months, gone from the teachings,
Yeah.
which was so positive. I wasn't interested in the miracles as much as how that was so direct and personal. So.
Yeah. So that's a bit like me, because it was through Sai literature. I heard his name, Sai, and I then started asking around, who is Sai? And someone said, well, he's a holy man in India. So I immediately tore up to Perth, because I lived in the southwest of Western Australia, a few hours from Perth, and I went up and I found 2 books in a bookshop, The Holy Man and the Psychiatrist and Man of Miracles, the ones that you've mentioned. So it was Howard Murfitt's book and Samuel Sandweiss. And when I read, like you, it wasn't the miracles that really attracted me, it was his teachings. And what struck me was that here on earth was an incarnation of God. And I remember when I was thinking, as a Christian many years before, how wonderful it would be to be able to be living in the time of Christ. And so then it hit me, well, I'm now living in the time of an incarnation of God. So and the thing I believe that drew me to him was that when I started reading these different spiritual books before I came across Sai, I had this incredible yearning to experience the divinity within me. And I had an obsession about that. And I believe it was that yearning that then attracted him to me, or brought us together, if you like.
So you must have had that feeling of being divine.
Yes, I come
Anyway.
across that in my spiritual readings, and then I believe it was this yearning that he responded to.
And for me, somehow that didn't happen in my Christian upbringing. And I think even then I was curious. I wanted to know more about this entity. I was looking for some other dimension. My life wasn't complete somehow, even though I was happily married with a family and a career, in medicine, in a practice, and if you could put it like this, a home that was socially acceptable in that community. It just wasn't enough for me. So that was amazing to get there. So when did you end up going to India?
In 1986. But something happened before I went, because he gave me that experience of the inner divinity. So he allowed me to experience his energy and love within myself. So that
how
was...
How did that happen?
Well, he came to me in a dream and took my hands, and into me flowed all of him. And it was the most indescribable feeling of love and bliss. So looking back, I feel that he gave me the experience that I'd yearned for, but it was like I had this one-off experience, and then I then had to work at, in my spiritual practice, how to have that experience permanently. So that's kept me going through all these years.
So it's more like another dimension to reality, is it?
It was
Could you say
it
that?
was a very different reality, and it was something I'd never. It was beyond words. It was a whole different level of experience. So I believe I experienced him.
So I guess my curiosity was to try and pursue that aspect of it. I mean, there were mysterious little miracle things happening, even the miracle of hearing about him and being able to join a group. That was pretty special. But.
So the other thing that drew me to him was his teachings. And I was very fortunate to join a Sai group in the southwest of Western Australia within days or weeks of hearing about him.
So they already existed?
They existed
Ah.
in Bridgetown. And I used to drive 2 hours to Budgeons on a Sunday, 2 hours to study circle on a Thursday night. And it was just like gold to me to be able to delve into these teachings and share them with others. So over the years, our little group studied education and human values, different study guides to study circle. We studied his discourses on the Bhagavad Gita, all the Vahinis. So it was just the most wonderful time to go once a fortnight it was, and study his teaching?
I think I can relate to that absolute excitement of discovering and talking to other people about it, as we did in those days. But we were not existing as a group until after we came back from India, and then we started meeting for bhajans, trying to learn them, and maybe discussing, not as seriously as you, perhaps, at that time, but trying to find ways of applying these teachings to our lives.
What changed you, looking back, how different was it for you after having, come into contact with Sai?
After the first visit, or the
when you think back along the way, what change happened?
Well, the first obvious things were physical, in that we were boring now because we didn't drink at parties and stopped getting invited. Found conversations that were oiled with alcohol a little bit boring. So we stopped. We changed our social group, if you like, and changed our diet. So that was the first thing. And I think we did a lot with meeting with the group. What can we do? What shall we do? Very soon after that, we developed ideas of service as a centre, as a group.
Lovely. Well, when I think my whole life changed, it was really life-changing for me when I first connected. I gave up eating meat, as you've mentioned, that sort of thing. But apart from that, my whole life, my values changed, my priorities. I discovered that the reason that we take human birth is to realise our divinity. So that became my focus. So I used to think about God, I meditated, and that was the most important thing for me. So it was actually life-changing from the very first time I started to read those teachings.
And so do you think you changed your circle of friends then?
I did. See, I didn't have any family members who were interested in Sai or the spiritual teachings, but I did have some beautiful spiritual friends, so that was very nourishing for me. But they weren't Sai people, so it was very important for me, those times I drove to Bridgetown and met with other Sai people who were open to these teachings. And also national conferences were important, because I was on my own in this little town, living in the bush actually. So it was really important for me to have the opportunity to go to conferences, retreats. And I first met you when I went to a beautiful retreat at your property up inland from Bundaberg. So you had beautiful retreats up there.
Oh, we were lucky. So what about your job? How did that change? Or did it change?
It did, because my professional work was in counselling. So having discovered these teachings, what happened for me when I went back into my counselling work is that now that I knew that everyone is divine and that divinity is in every single person, it meant that I changed the way I worked, because I could then see my role as a counsellor as to create a space where each person could discover that inner divinity and inner wisdom to find their own path, if you like. I trusted that they had that wisdom, and I was there to facilitate that.
And did it work?
Yes.
That approach?
Yeah. In fact, particularly when I was able to get myself out of the way and just allow that God within me to do the connection.
I think in my job as general practitioner, it wasn't quite as easy. Well, I shouldn't say it's easy, but as simple.
It was different, yeah.
Because of people's expectations.
Sure.
For what they were coming for. But I do remember having a picture of Swami on the wall behind each person's head and being able to relate to them, hopefully on that level, and sneaking in a few fervent prayers along the way.
So, I mean, your trust in God and in Sai must have also then given you a degree of confidence, do you think?
Oh, definitely, because by then, of course, we'd been to India a few times, so perhaps we should just explore that a little bit. What was it like for you when you got to India? Why did you need to go after having that experience and this realisation?
I wanted to experience Sai's physical presence.
Why?
I don't know, can't explain that, but it was something that, as I said, when I thought back to my life as a Christian, when I thought how wonderful it would be to meet Christ in person, I have the same feeling here. I would like to meet this and be in the presence of Sathya Sai Baba. So I went, and the first time I went it was Easter time, so he was at Kodaikanal and Uti. Very small groups, crowds there.
That was
86. 86. So I did, and I've got goosebumps now when I think of it, I did have the experience of touching his feet. And what happened was, as I connected with his feet, this incredible, like electric energy came up through and struck my heart. And my heart ached for days after that. It was a huge experience. And then a few days later, I was sitting with a group of other ladies in the darshan line, and we all had front row at that time. And he came along and he looked down into each one of us. And as his gaze penetrated, I could feel that he looked through everything, every life, every thought, every atom of me. It was quite, extremely powerful. And so I just felt cleaned out after that, very different. So they were my main experiences of him physically, being in his presence in that early time.
I think I had something similar to that on my first visit. I'm checking out this entity and wondering why I'm here and going through all the challenges of living in an ashram, shed number 11, I think it was. And for some reason, Swami was walking, he would walk from the Mandir area to the Punachandra, and I stayed there instead of rushing off for breakfast. And as he passed, he looked in my eyes, and I had that loss of space and time. I think that was what it was. It was just like I disappeared into that gaze. And after he passed, I looked around and, did anybody else notice this? Did anybody else experience this? And then when he came back, the same look. And so when I went to catch up with my mates in shed number 11, I said, he looked at me. I couldn't explain it, but I think that was what it was. It was just that amazing change of reality. And from then, I guess I was hooked, because I knew something had changed in me, that he did know the inside of who I was or where I had been.
In fact, there are so many accounts, aren't there, of how everyone who's there in that crowd can feel his personal connection with each one of them.
Yes.
Because, you know, he is in each one of us, and therefore he can connect in that way.
And it's an amazing thing to think of all those thousands and thousands of people who relate so personally to him, reading the books and then in the darshan. And after a while, I don't know about you, I didn't feel I needed to sit so close anymore. Yeah. The feeling was sometimes more powerful if I didn't have to jostle and touch.
In fact, that was often a distraction, I found. All of the pushing and shoving and people's desperate need to get close. It was all part of how it was, but it was quite distracting at the same time.
And do you think that in Australia now we can still have that experience?
Absolutely. In fact, in a way, I think we've been blessed, because I went to visit and to see him probably 4 times when he was on Earth. But I really focused on having the experience of him wherever I was, and particularly in my home in Yallingup, because I live in the bush, and I really experience God in nature. And for me, I feel closer to him at home with the trees and the birds.
Okay, so is it a visual thing?
No, it's not a visual thing. It's more like I can actually experience the power and the incredible, the wonders of creation. That's what I experience when I'm in nature. And that's that's God to me.
I am a wave in the ocean, with every breeze I rise and fall.
Now, we were going to also talk about how one of the things Swami talks about is the importance of demonstrating love for God through serving selflessly in society. Can you say, I know you've talked about your work in medicine and how that you brought Sai's values into medicine, but you also used to run camps for children at your property, because I know...
I have to say that it wasn't just me. Remember, we had a couple of...
You had a team.
We did.
Yeah, sure.
Very important. I think at one stage this lady was retreat organiser for the country. But anyway, yes, we used to love getting people together, developing themes and inviting people who very generously never refused to come, even if they were coming from the Gold Coast in the case of Arthur and Poppy and the Pink Twins, or Tasmania, wherever they were coming from.
Yeah.
And
I remember going to some of those retreats. They were absolutely beautiful.
Yes, it was lovely because we were physically away from people. I think the nearest neighbours were 7 kilometres away or something, and we could make noise if we wanted to. We could develop.
Sing loudly.
Yes, integrate it with nature, go for nature walks.
But don't forget those camps you did for children in the community, because I saw all sorts of building that you'd done, and I saw horses that these kids used to ride.
Yes,
so
and that was another wonderful gift of Swami that developed that theme, that our love of nature, our love of doing things in the bush and wanting to share it, and sharing it with troubled youth. So they were boys, these were boys from about year 7 to about year 10. We'd have half a dozen come for a weekend. We ran 20 camps over 5 years.
I know, it was amazing, Mark, when I heard
and
about
we
this.
used to develop, it wasn't anything in Sai's name, except that his name was attached, Sai Inward Bound Adventure Camps, but we were able to demonstrate, if you like, through projects, horse riding, forge work, woodwork, singing, reconnoitring, following trails in the bush. We were able to hopefully share and make some sort of impact. We always knew that we didn't look for any outcome, so these were children taken from high schools with teachers wanting to measure what the outcomes were.
Oh, yes.
And
you weren't into outcomes.
We weren't into it. No, we just believed that doing it that way with love was going to have some effect of some sort, but we weren't necessarily ever going to know. And by the way, just recently, we still run into some of these students, and just recently came across a lady who was working in a home, and she wanted to tell me about her son, how we saved his life, is the way she put it, when he was
beautiful
in need then. So that was not we, that was Swami.
It was,
that. Yes.
yeah. But you were an instrument, and you shared that love and the love of nature, and you were able to, and I guess, relate to those young people in a way that they found important. Don't you think?
Wasn't always perfect, but it was.
No, but it was
an
I'm
enjoyable
sure.
thing. Yes.
Yeah.
So, and what about you? You also did a very amazing work down your way.
Well, I guess for me, in 1989 I did a certificate in palliative care studies, so I became involved with a group in my community setting up a community hospice program, and it was based on the human values. So it is very much providing love and care and compassion to people at the end of life. So we have volunteers involved in that. But I'm still involved 30 years later, and that's been a wonderful experience for me. But that was all, I guess, inspired by Sai's teachings and putting his values into practice in a program in my local community.
And so that's not, again, any necessarily outward expression of Swami's name?
No.
It's something that
it's something that motivates me, and it, there are wonderful people who are drawn to that work. So there's people, it's a very spirituality in its broadest perspective.
So do you think that Swami is expressing his love in other non-labelled, non-identified ways?
Sure, yeah, because divinity's in everyone and everywhere. So yes, I can see the hand of God everywhere, which is beautiful.
So in a way, is this what Swami meant when he said, I do not want publicity for my name?
Sure. He said he wants publicity for the philosophy, for the teachings. So it's really those 5 human values. That's what he wants us to promote in the world, but mainly through how we live our lives and how we interact with others. That's what makes a difference, I think.
So we need to also mention, I think, in this little conversation about what drew us together, because, all right, you'd been to some of our retreats, and I heard you talk too, but what happened to me was the sudden loss of my son's life, and I'd heard that you also had that experience, and I was looking for comfort, if you like, some I knew that Swami was love, and it was going to be okay in the end, but for me, I needed to jump back into the mother business, and I wanted comfort.
Yeah, absolutely. And that time that we joined together and shared his teachings and shared our experiences was really important for me, because I'd lost Anthony a couple of years before you lost Dirk, and I do know that what sustained me through that time was his teachings. It made a huge difference to me to know that the time of our death is written on our brow at the time we take birth. So I accepted without resistance that it was his time. But it was really important to have the opportunity to share with another mother how painful that was, so that even though I had the teachings, I still had to go through the pain of grief because I was still attached to him. So I had to gradually let go of that attachment.
So that's really interesting, isn't it, that duality?
Yeah, and what I found was that there were moments in my deepest pain where I could just be in the self, and they were like islands of beauty in a difficult time.
Big S.
Yes. Yeah, with the capital S, self. So there were. When I think of that time, that's how it was for me.
I found that too. I used to sit down and pray at the end of each day, and the day that my son died. Thank you, Lord, for this day. And I'm thinking, what am I saying? How can I say thank you for the day my son died? But it took a while to not adapt that Maya, that expectation. It was a feeling that lasted some years, on and off.
Yeah, well, Swami says that our grief is in relation to the degree of attachment that we have. And I then had to go through the process and the journey of letting go of that attachment, which has been an important part. And that's in fact brought me closer to Swami, to God, is that whole journey of letting go of my attachment. Because my role of mother was very important to me.
And so what was it that helped you do that?
It was his teachings.
Well, which teaching?
I think the main one for me is that everything is God, everything is perfect. It's that non-duality. And over those years, since losing Anthony, I've moved closer into that experience of everything is perfect and we can trust that it is right.
And for me, I always had this habit of collecting sayings, and one of our retreats, which was the one you came to, was the theme was Moya, 3 M's, Moya Music and Moksha, Moya O'Brien. And we had this little book that we gave everyone.
Yeah, I've still got my book. Yeah.
That my son Dirk put together. But this teaching is, we even named our home Moksha, so that was why it was significant. And this little teaching is really amazing for me. You know, I came across it again. I thought, yes, moksha is no special and exclusive heaven into which one has to earn admission. It is not a special status or acquisition or possession. It is just the removal of the false notion that we are bound and limited by the body, the senses, the intellect, the mind, the ego, and other fancies.
And what came out of our connection at that time of loss was that we got together and collected as many of Sai's teachings as we could find on life and death, grief and loss, because what we discovered was that when we're at a time when we're so vulnerable, it's very hard to find the teachings or to go looking. So we thought if we could collect them, it would be a comfort to other people. So we created a little booklet of Sai's teachings on grief and loss, and we called it Children of Immortality. And that was a beautiful experience for me to have that time with you working on that. So I really appreciate that. And I thank Swami for that.
Yes, yes.
Now, we were also just going to share which of the teachings have been the most important or stand out in our memory, if you like. Is there anything?
I must say that what happens for me is whenever I'm in need of a teaching, I open a book and there it is, and it's perfect, or there's a thought for the day. So it's just, in a way, it's everything, and then nothing, just to remember that Sai exists and he's there. But what about you? What one do you go back to?
Well, the thing I keep coming back to is chapter 12 of the Bhagavad Gita. I studied this with the young adults when we went to Prashanti in 2005, and our little group had to do a presentation on chapter 12, which was fantastic. So this is where Krishna is talking to Arjuna in the middle of the battlefield, and he gives him the qualities of one devoted to God. So things like being equal-minded under pleasure or pain, dedicating all acts to God and not being worried about the outcome. That's meant a lot to me, and I endeavour to bring that into everything I do. Accepting knocks that come as blessings in disguise. All of the things that are really the sort of things that we've touched on before. Being indifferent to praise or criticism, and treating enemies and friends alike. All of these sorts of, and there were others, but they're the things that really struck me at the time, and I still go back to those particular teachings to support me in times when I face difficulties. So it's probably time for us to wind up this little conversation. So is there anything, how would you describe where you are now, Marg, in terms of your spiritual journey?
I think I'm at last understanding a bit more about being a human being and not a human doing. I don't have any great goals of what I need to be doing, and I just accept. I think what seems to be happening in some ways, moving to Perth to live now is a big change. There's no imperative, there's no work out there that I see I must be doing, but it's just evolving. It's more or less accepting everything that happens and being able to see so much of Swami everywhere, not just in nature, but in everybody I come across. That's the amazing thing now.
So it's a bit similar for me. In the beginning of my spiritual journey, I used to hunger for, this state of self-realization, the moksha, and think, oh gosh, I wish I could be free of this body and be in that state. I rarely think of that sort of thing now. I don't think of what I want to be or how I want, who I want to, what state I want to be in. I just very much there in each experience, just more living in the now, in the moment, without thinking of what I'm wanting to do. But also, I guess for me, it's that coming back to that thought that everything is perfect and that God is perfect. And no matter how challenging times are, it is all how it's meant to be. So that sustains me. So thank you for this opportunity. It's been a real blessing to have the chance to have this little conversation today.
Well, we probably thought we knew each other very well, but we find out
a bit more. Thank you.
There's more layers to that.
So Sairam, thank you, Mark.
Sairam, Jenny.
God, let me be one with all beings. God, let me see all that's divine. God, you fill my life with light, joy to all the heavens. Make me golden, shining bright, joy to all the world. God, let me be one with all beings. God, let me see all that's divine. God, you fill me with your love, shine brightly upon me. Pour your precious love on all, bring peace to the world. God, let me be one with all beings. God, let me see all as divine.
Throughout his time with us, Sai Baba demonstrated his commitment to selfless service as a way of alleviating the sufferings of people, but also as a supreme spiritual practice. His example of ceaseless service to all remains an inspiration to his followers. His statements on service show the importance of his place upon it, service to man as a service to God. When you offer milk to a hungry child, or a blanket to a shivering brother, on the pavement you are but placing a gift of God into the hands of another gift of God. Hands that help are holier than lips that pray. He taught that selfless service was a way of expanding our love. As God is love, expanding our love is a way of coming closer to God and our true self. Service as a spiritual practice helps to see God in all. Ultimately, service is to yourself as it leads to fulfillment of life's purpose, realization of God in all and in you. As always, Sai taught by example. This next segment highlights his example and is followed by a series of photos of many service activities undertaken by members of the SSIO in Australia.
Lord, make me like you. Please make me like you. You are a servant. Make me one too. Oh Lord, I am willing. Please do what you must do to make me like you, Lord. Make me like you.
While Sai has left his physical body, he always taught that God is within us and is the most reliable guide. If we truly listen, He will guide us. Perhaps in closing, it is worth repeating a quote of Sai's that in many ways sums up one of the most important messages he had to give. I have come to light the lamp of love in your hearts, to see that it shines day by day with added luster. I have not come on behalf of any exclusive religion. I have not come on a mission of publicity for a sect or creed or cause, nor have I come to collect followers for a doctrine. I have no plan to attract disciples or devotees into my fold or any fold. I have come to tell you of this unitary faith, this spiritual principle, this path of love, this virtue of love, this duty of love, this obligation of love. Sathya Sai Baba, 4th July 1968.
Swami, we adore you. Lay our life before you. How we love you. How we love you. Swami, we adore you. Lay our life before you. How we love
truth is my bread, bliss is my food. Love is my form, truth is my breath, bliss is my food. My life is my message, expansion is my life. My life is my message, expansion is my life. My life is my message, expansion is my life. No reason for love, no reason for love, no birth, no death. Satya Ananda, Shanti Satya Ananda. Prema Satya Ananda, Shanti Dharma Ananda. Patti Sai Patti Baba Jai Jai. Shirdi Sai Patti Sai Prema Sai Jai Jai. Love is my form, truth is my bread, peace is my food. Love is my form, truth is my bread, peace is my food. Love is my form, truth is my bread, peace is my food. Love is my form, truth is my bread, bliss is my food.
The Lord of the universe is here, Swami Sathya Sai is here. Come to send devotees everywhere, come to bless His children everywhere. Born at Puttaparthi, the Lord of the universe is here. Calm and tranquil like the moon, shining with divine inner light, filling all with bliss at His side. He is always serving those in need, answering the prayers of devotees, giving grace to you and me. The Lord of the universe is here. Sai, you are Guru God Himself. Mother, you are everything to us. Father, you are everything to us. You are the divine primal energy, manifests all that we ever see. You are the one reality. The Lord of the universe is here. Sai, with the sacred form of Om, universal radiance divine, please accept this offering of mine. The flame of love that burns within my heart, meaning we can never be apart. You and I are ever one. The Lord of the Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastaloka